So that's the living room of one of my many comp suites that I get from this casino. And the reason why I thought I should make this video at the casino is because I just finished the book, The Signal and the Noise by Nate Silver. Now, it's a book about statistics and probability. And he actually developed all different models for predicting things. He's looked into predicting weather, earthquakes, presidents. But I think what he made most of his money on was actually predicting sports. And I've done a lot of sports betting. I've bet through maybe $1 million in sports betting. And what I did was basically consolidate data from different sports books. And I didn't know what this was called, but in this book I learned that it's called Bayesian statistics. Now, Bayesian statistics is when you take you take data that you gather, and instead of just inferring based on that data, you're actually taking a set of priors and adding that into the mix. So for example, just to put this down for a second, if you have priors saying one thing and your data says another thing, the actual answer and the truth that you're looking to find is usually somewhere in between. Now, the best example of the book, I was actually listening to this audiobook, and when this part came on, I had to pause it and just think about it for like 5 minutes. I was like, so this number, and then if that was higher, then what would happen? Okay, here it is. So they were saying they have this test for breast cancer where 10% of the time you'll get a false positive. 75% of the time you'll get an accurate, true positive. Now, if you have someone take this test, what are the chances that they'll get a positive? Well, the chances of getting a positive, we don't really know that. What are the chances of getting a negative? Well, we do know that there's at least a 10% chance of getting a negative because of all the false negatives. So if you were to take a class of women, for example, women under 40 years old is what they use in the book. If they were all to take that test, what percentage of them would get a positive result? Well, we know for sure that it's going to be over 10%. And the actual answer is about 11% of women under 40 will get a positive result from that test, saying that they do have breast cancer. Now, again, this is a test where 75% of the time it's right when it says you have breast cancer. 10% of the time it's wrong when it says you have breast cancer. So only 11% of women would actually get a positive result, because in that class of women, only 1% actually have breast cancer. So you get about 1%, which are accurately predicted. It would actually be, 0.75%? And then most of the other ones would be false positives, just based on the sheer number that you're dealing with. You're dealing with an extremely unlikely event paired with something that, at a pretty high rate, predicts wrong. So when a woman under 40 takes this test and is told she has breast cancer, the actual chance of her having it for real is only 10%. And so he was also making the case that you shouldn't even screen for breast cancer until you have a higher risk rate, because the test isn't accurate enough. You're going to be telling 10 people that they probably have it when only one has it, and then you're also missing 25% or 15%, whatever it is, of people who actually have it they're going to be told that they don't have it. So the prior in this case was the fact that we know on average there's only a 1% chance. Now, just going into this, hearing the test numbers, you would think, oh, anyone takes the test, they're going to get a positive. It's probably going to be a positive because 75 versus 10. But no, really depends on the person. For example, if you were to say like 10-year-old boys, they're going to get 10% of the time told that they have breast cancer, when we know, based on priors, without even looking it up, that the chances of a 10-year-old boy having breast cancer is much, much lower than that. So that was very interesting. Now, another gambling-based thing, he was saying that the average poker player, like professional poker player, only has about a 1% advantage, let's say. So if they have a 1% advantage over the house, whatever their advantage is, that average is 16 times that. 16 times that average number is one standard deviation from it. So I may have confused you there with my mixing up the numbers. But let's say you have a 1% advantage over the house or the other players. That means, on average, if you place a $100 wager, you're going to walk away with $101. But in practice, the standard deviation throws that way off. So that will be the result over a long period of time, maybe over 1 million hands. But the standard deviation is 16 times that. So really, on the bell curve of your 1% edge over the house, it could land anywhere from you lose 15 to you gain 16. Or you lose 14, gain 16. Because instead of having 1% edge, really, you're just shifting it so that the bell curve is slightly in your favor. You've still got pretty much the same size bell curve on the other side that's not in your favor. And you've got the same side that is in your favor. You're only slightly ahead. And so even over 10,000 hands, it's not crazy for you to be behind even when you have an edge. And that's why I always try to get a larger edge. I would play with a 1% edge, but it's really so risky at that point. The other thing you would need is to figure out your Kelly number and all that, but that's not part of the book. When I do gambling, I look for, can I get like a 3% edge minimum? I'd like to have like 5 or 10%. That would be nice, somewhere in there. And it is possible. It's definitely possible to find that. I don't really think they talk too much about that in the book. They're mostly poker and sports betting. So those are both great things. Very cool to learn about Bayesian statistics because I didn't really know that was a thing. I've done a little of it before, but that breast cancer example was pretty mind-blowing for me.